Hello, Marcel. Welcome to AviaDev Inside Europe podcast.
Hello, thank you very much having invited me here and having the possibility to speak to all your audience.
Looking forward to working closer with you with the aviation event. So before we dive into that, what aviation event is and how was it born, let's start with you and your personal journey, your personal connection with aviation. As far as I know, you haven't studied it or you haven't worked directly in an airline or the airport. So how was your relationship with aviation being formulated?
Yeah, I always wanted to be in aviation, to be honest, but my destiny after having studied business and economics in France some years ago was different. I finally ended up in consulting and car industry, still transport somehow, but yeah, not aviation. And some 10 years ago, I made my addiction to my job and founded Aviation Event with the help of some others, obviously. And yeah, now we are the leading provider of aviation conferences, media, and let's say social gatherings around aviation, at least in Europe. And yeah, after hopefully the pandemic might end one day, or at least we find a way to handle the pandemic, let's say, in a peaceful way. We are obviously aiming to become a bit more global, but that wasn't possible in the pandemic situation, obviously.
Of course, yeah. You mentioned 10 years ago, so that's when the aviation event was born.
Yes, actually it was 12 years ago, but I'm dedicated to that, let's say, kind of full time, like 9 to 10 years. And we started at the time in Germany, and then to Austria, the classical way, German speaking market, and
Yes.
now Spain, Romania, Italy, probably very soon Montenegro, Albania, Switzerland, Portugal, and yeah, hopefully also Turkey and Russia are on our destination list, let's say.
What was the idea behind aviation event when you were starting it? What made you think that now there is a good time and good place to start something like that?
Yeah. Again, this decision was taken like 10 to 12 years ago, so that was another time. So we can't compare to today, especially not with the pandemic situation. Very clearly not. Probably nobody would start such a project. It's clear. Even I think your company, same, wasn't founded during the last 2 years. The idea was and is still, let's say, hasn't changed too much in all these years. Obviously, we adapted to the market a bit to bring together aviation world and, let's say, media, general media, generic media, as we say. So not only aviation specific journalists, which are still only a few there on the market, by the way. I wanted to bring together on a kind of neutral platform these kind of interest groups and people. I'm totally aware, especially 12 years ago and almost the same today, there's enough aviation conferences and meetings around the globe, but most of them are from, let's say, associations like IATA, ACI, A4E, ICAO, and others, which are part of the industry. I'm not against all. Don't get me wrong. They are all our partners, I would say, and we fully support them. But kind of these are kind of aviation industry organizations. Some of them we could say lobby organizations, and media people. They prefer somehow a kind of neutral platform, and that's why Aviation Event is not competing at all with all these existing, let's say, industry-specific organizations and meetings and conferences, but we are having a kind of niche between media, politics, and all our partners, which includes all the organizations which I just mentioned.
Yeah, that definitely sounds very interesting and something relatively unique. as you are saying, there are many events on the market, but
Absolutely.
there is something special about what you are doing. So, as you mentioned, last 2 years doing events in aviation was probably worst combination ever for for a business.
Any kind of
So it was
yeah.
so it was very difficult also, of course, for us, for AviaDev, but I'm sure same for you. So how did you manage even to keep the business alive during those 2 very difficult years?
I think as the complete industry, aviation industry, we had 2 ways of going, and I think we have to be honest here. Many airports, if not all of them, I think also most of the airlines, if not all of them, got some kind of state aid, subventions, help, indirect or direct, and which compensated a bit, at least the worst part of the crisis, which is more in 2020 than 21, probably.
Yeah.
You remember 2020 was the beginning. We were all unsure, no vaccination available.
Yeah, everybody was hoping it will be over in 3 months or something like that.
I think there was almost no commercial flight for 3 months, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So, that's one part. So that's part of the story. That's why I'm telling this honestly and clearly. The second part is obviously creativity, engagement, power, and a bit of luck also. We got back in the market already in 2020 with smaller, tailored conferences and events, where we just moved around the restrictions by getting smaller. Obviously, also revenue gets smaller, so it was not the solution, but it was at least one piece of the solution, as I mentioned it before. And our, let's say, full range of aviation event and it just was designed. The last one before the crisis in Salzburg was 350 people. We were back at the market at least with 180 paxes in June 21, second year of pandemic.
Yes, that was in Tenerife. Yeah,
in Tenerife, exactly. Yeah, and how did we manage? Yeah, because we went on a place which people supporting us, who said, no, we are not waiting to the end, which was and is kind of still what is the end of COVID? Probably will be next
yeah,
kind of. And they had, let's say, the courage to do this with us, and we had some favorable situation there, high vaccination rate already in June 21, in at least on the Canary Islands, maybe not only in all Spain. And as you know, Canary Islands, it's a kind of warmer country or warmer region, which it seems so helps to get the virus a bit more down than in colder countries or in colder times of the year. So June, summer,
yes,
island, relatively good organization, limited number of paxes. So we had only even not 200. The location which we rented for the day was able to catch 600 people, but that was not enough. So we did it, let's say, with reduced capacity. Very easy. So so it's not one single measurement we took, and then by a miracle we are back in the business. So it's a couple of things, and at the end we managed somehow to be back on the market. And in August, then we did the same in Italy. Again, warm country. Again, summer. Open space, again reduced capacity of Paxe, and same recipe, let's say. And probably now for Cluj in 31st of March will be the same. We will not run with the maximum we could do, which means economically also limited income. Also that is also part of the story, obviously.
Yeah, you already mentioned. So the next event is happening in Cluj on the 31st of March. So tell us more about it. What kind of discussions, what kind of guests can we expect at that event?
Yeah, that event, that's also no secret, was planned for end of last year. It couldn't happen because of the situation throughout Europe. I don't want to go into details. Everybody knows. Yeah. So now it will happen. The situation is quite better all over Europe, so there's no doubt that we can run the show, at least with some restrictions, as mentioned before. Cluj has, let's say, a couple of things which are unique, even for us, having had so many aviation conferences for the last 10, 12 years. It's a regional, let's say a regional airport, whatever you define it, let's say mid-sized airport. It's the smallest airport aviation event has ever been in kind of airport capacity. So we want to go regional, we want to go mid-size, also in the future. We don't want to stay always with the big air hubs like Vienna or Frankfurt or whatever. Second, it's in Eastern Europe. It's our first, let's say, a bit larger conference in Eastern Europe. Yeah, so also this is interesting. You know that in Romania only, probably all the other Eastern European EU states, it's pretty much the same. Even in the next 10 years, air traffic will double. That's at least what European Union foresees. So that's a strong market. There's a lot of potential in the market, and that's why we have to be there. Number 3, this event, Aviation Event 2022 Cluj, will happen in an airport, yeah, in a real airport, in an operating airport. So it will be landside.
So the venue itself for the conference is the airport itself, the terminal.
In an airport, landside, not airside. It's easier. You know the restriction.
For sure, yeah.
But it's in an airport, really there, and
nice.
The traffic of that day will have to go around a bit, yeah. And priority aviation event, and we like it.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to be there in flesh myself as well. So can't wait to meet all of your team and of course all of your speakers. I mean, when I looked at your website, the list of the expected speakers is really impressive. I think one of the highlights would be probably the interview with Mr. Varadi, the CEO of Wizz Air. If I'm not mistaken, Henrik Holloway from European Commission should be there as well. So lots of interesting guests.
Yeah, let's see who really comes at the end, because even before COVID, you know, we have really high-level speakers, and if you have these kind of speakers, even last-minute cancellations always happened. That's not COVID specific.
Yep.
That's how it is. Higher you get, bigger the chances that something comes around. Yeah, that's how the business is.
That's
but
life,
we have several top level, like as you mentioned, Wizz Air CEO Joseph Varadi, and I want to point out another one, which is the director general of ACI World, coming from Canada to Cluj. That's really a big step, let's say. Yeah. So
wow.
We are getting somebody from overseas, and we have also from overseas to the little airport of Cluj. Yeah, we have the World Bank with Charles Schlumberger coming down the road from Washington DC. So yeah, probably no direct flights to Cluj. I think so, but still people are coming, and that's what I meant before. We want to expand globally. We want, at least content-wise, have also views and opinions about aviation, tourism, and transport industry from outside, from Romania, from outside of Europe, like a global view on that. And that's quite important, that you can really meet people there, which you wouldn't meet at any aviation event in Europe so easily.
Yeah, 100%. And I loved what you said about the market, the Eastern European market, which is close to my heart as well, as I am based in Slovakia and I used to work for a regional airport over here. And that's really the massive potential for growth, which of course you have bigger markets, maybe more established markets in the Western Europe, but the potential for real growth is definitely here.
Yeah,
I totally agree.
There, and it's definitely also on other continents, South America, Africa maybe a bit less, but still, yeah. The core markets of Middle and Western Europe are probably kind of satisfied. I leave crisis effects behind me, yeah. But in Eastern Europe, there's a lot of potential, and because simply in Eastern Europe, there are a lot of people having never been on board of an aircraft. And this we have to change. You agree, no?
100%, absolutely. Yeah. So let's conclude our discussion today with your expectations of this year, 2022. When you are talking to all of the respected people from the industry, CEOs, consultants, experts, when you put it all together, what are your expectations? because we hear it from many angles, from different sources, that really this should be the year of the recovery.
Yeah,
there is massive pent-up
yes.
demand. People are eager to fly again. So, do you share that optimism as well?
Well, at least for the core summer, the booking numbers are more than positive. There's a couple of destinations like Greece, which are more booked than before the crisis, at least for the summer. Yeah. So maybe others are less. So let's see then the total addition, the total result at the end of the summer. But yeah, probably the summer will be almost kind of normal. Maybe a bit less in intercont. Yeah, I think intercont will still be in kind of tourism. Will not reach the level before the crisis, not yet at all. That would be my guess. Yeah, for a couple of reasons probably. But optimism, let's say, I would like to be optimistic about next winter, not about the summer. Because summer season seems to be, at least for tourism, a self-fulfilling affair. If the next winter we are going to be again deep in our hole of restrictions and lockdowns and vaccinations and tests and double tests and airports closing down for this and that reasons, destinations being eliminated from the flight plan, that is for me more important. If you can survive more or less peacefully the next winter with COVID than the next summer. This is my personal opinion. And I think we need to talk now, this springtime, about next winter, and not only starting to talk about this when summer season is over. Then it's too late.
I completely agree with that, for sure. Yeah. So, Marcel, thanks a lot. Appreciate your time. It was great talking to you, and I personally can't wait to meet you in Cluj at the aviation event on the 31st of March.
I would last thing before say it will happen 99.99%, and no politics will stop us anymore.
Yes.
And I think it looks good. Yeah. And we hope for some nice days there. Probably most people have never heard about Cluj Airport before. And now you know why it makes sense for these people in Transylvania, in Romania, to have aviation event, because now for one day at least, plus the campaign period, everybody will talk about their, let's say, mid-sized airport.
And it's really fantastic. So last thing before we say goodbye, as I always ask at the very end of this question, what do you love the most about aviation?
The most? Having
First thing that comes to your mind.
Having a non-bumpy flight on time. With some French wine or German beer on board.
Sounds like a great
French
combination.
And German, I'm saying that, yeah.
Of course. Okay, Marcel, thanks a lot. We keep in touch and all the best.
Thank you very much. See you in Cluj.